what I was saying before this fiasco started is you said you were tired, and then I was like, I can't possibly respond to that because like the reasonable response would be like, well, then let's make this a short one. But we've proven that that's basically a curse.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm left to, you know what, we should do it like the the Scottish play thing where I'll just be like, then let's make sure this is a 4-hour one, and then
let's make this a long one, and then it'll be
the
the shortest episode we've ever done in our entire lives. Yeah. I like where your head's at. I like this line of thinking. Hello and welcome to Flanagan's Wake, a doof media podcast drugging Mike Flanagan and taking him to Colorado. My name is Scott Daly, and I am your host. And joining me, as always, my half-brother, Matt Freeman. And that's not like a metaphorical half-brother or anything. I just mean literally. He's just related to me. We're all related.
We're all half brothers if you think about literally though.
Wait, no. But yes,
actually, yes.
This week on the show, we continue with Stephen King's Dr. Sleep as we discuss chapters 13 through 17 of the novel. The conflict between the True and Team Alcoholics Anonymous come to a head as the Crow Daddy's strike force is handily defeated by Team Abra, but not before Crow himself slips away and takes her prisoner. All is not lost, though, Matt, as Dan inhabits the mind of the young girl and frees her from imprisonment. As Dan and Abra prepare to head for Colorado to confront Rose once and for all, a shocking surprise is revealed. Uncle Dan is actually Uncle Dan. Fuck. Matt, this is the thing. This is the thing I've been alluding to the entire time. I hate this. I hate this so much. And we'll get into the why, but here it is.
Is this the reason why Dr. Sleep didn't make it into season 3 of Kingslingers?
Pretty much entirely, yeah.
Okay. It's good to know.
Yeah. I'm not a complicated man. I likes what I likes, and I don't likes what I don't likes. Well, and I do not like this at all.
Well, this will be fun because there was other stuff in this week's reading that I also had issues with. So we'll both have a little fun, a change of pace. You know, people usually come to us for our positivity and are talking about how and why things work. And this is the opposite day episode, everybody.
Yeah. Happy opposite day. I was going to say happy the date that this episode comes out, and then I realized I didn't know that. Happy 21st of August. Opposite day.
That's right.
I think in all seriousness, the thing I want to say is, in spite of the things in this week's reading that I truly do not like at all, the headline of that is Dan is literally related to Abra. There's a lot of good stuff here, and there's a lot of very smart and interesting and plenty to talk about in what this book is doing as it starts to round its way to home plate here. So yeah, we're probably gonna be a little bit more negative, and I think I have generally over the course of these 5 episodes been a little bit more negative. I want to acknowledge that, like, I can definitely feel the thing that people do happen to me, where when you don't like something because of one reason, all the other things start to bug you a little bit more. I felt that happening to me as I was putting the script together. So I just want to acknowledge that. I'm not saying that it's going to stop me. It's not going to stop me. I can't be stopped. But I want to acknowledge it at least.
Yeah, sure, understandable. I mean, I'll just go ahead and set the table and say I think I was bothered for sort of different reasons than you were. What got me about this week's reading in particular was that we've got a lot of complicated kind of action set pieces, and having seen the Flanagan adaptation, every single one of those scenes is like cleaner and smoother and more emotionally impactful in the Dr. Sleep Flanagan film adaptation, and all of the changes that he makes are favorable to the extent where you read the scenes and you're like waiting for the thing to happen that is like the point of the scene, and then it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, so that was an adaptation choice. Um, this is
Yeah.
rarely does this exact thing happen to me, because usually I haven't seen the adaptation first. But
Sure.
that was really the main thing this week. Is like several times in a row, I was like, "Huh, so we're doing it this way." So slightly different gripe than you actually, but we'll have fun with it.
But I think it's in the gripes, in my gripes neighborhood, at least our
Yeah,
gripes are like our backyards touch each other a little
that's
bit.
true. That's right.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. We begin with chapter 13, Cloud Gap. This week's reading begins with Crow Daddy, aka Henry Rothman, picking up his package of Abra drugs. Matt, I swear to God, the name Henry Rothman sounded so familiar to me, and I spent like 10 minutes trying to figure out why this name kept pinging off something in my head. And I couldn't figure it out. He's an artist from the 20th century, but I don't think that is the thing that I am pinging off of here. Maybe I don't think so. But it really stuck out to me, and I didn't know what to do with that. So anyway, here's Henry.
I do
Here he
feel
is.
like I've heard of him as an artist, so maybe that is just it.
It could be.
Um,
It could be.
I do love how King finds names. I mean, setting aside maybe King is doing an explicit reference to some famous artist here, but like I just love his not just stuff like Crow Daddy, where it's like, okay, well that's an evocative villain name, but I just mean his simple like side character names like Conchetta and you
Mm-hmm.
know David Stone. Like these are they're like the perfect name for a novel, but like where it's like it doesn't jump out to you as like that sure is a name that a character would have in a novel, but they're also memorable somehow. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. There's definitely a zone where it makes sense to, and he just always does it perfectly. I just wonder what his technique is.
Yeah. Do you think he wanted to name them Stonewalker instead of just Stone? But that would have been too much of a hint about the fact that everyone in this universe is related to each other. So he changed that, and he just dropped the Walker because it's like Stone and Sky. You know, it's close.
It's pretty close. Yeah, I feel like he wanted to do that, but it just his editor probably didn't let him. Yeah, that's probably it.
That's probably it. Yeah. Uh, um, Team Abra is fully in operational Trick the Two Knot as Abra and her dad, quote, are riding out on our wonderful little tiny train towards Cloud Gap for a nice picnic. This, of course, is just Dan. It's Abra and Dan's mind pretending to be Dan and her father. There's a really interesting beat here that I think that the book starts with the idea that Barry the Chunk is starting to cycle. He's very, very sick. He has the measles and he's starting to cycle. And as we'll see, he does eventually die. And we do learn, the book kind of tells us outright that this plan of theirs that they came up with maybe wouldn't have worked at all had Barry just been fully healthy. He just would not have been fooled by this.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it already kind of only half fools him because
Right,
their plan
right.
only really half works because they aren't fully fooled. They are half fooled, and then we get a nice complication. I will say, for all of the like joking that we've been doing, like the setup, build up, and execution of this as a set piece, kind of stepping back from it and talking about the whole like True Knot is coming for Abra, good guys created this clever distraction and then ambushed the True Knot, but
Yeah.
then the True Knot, had an insight, so they send Crow to get Abra, and then we have to do this psychic battle where like it's great. It's actually great. Like
Yes.
there are like discrete points where I'm like, but overall, I just love it actually.
I agree. I do agree. This is like conceptually a really fun idea. I also really like this early part of it here, just like how the book kind of slow rolls this part, and we have a lot of fun with Abra essentially having to exist in two places at once, where she's simultaneously having to carry on this conversation with her father through Dan, and also be present in her neighbor's house. They're playing Scrabble, they're playing basketball, and she's like having to kind of juggle between the two of them. I just think that's really fun stuff. I like that a lot as well.
Me too.
So yeah, I think that goes into our point about we're not going to be like, I didn't hate these chapters, right? I hate one choice that King made here, and that's largely it. We'll get into some side choices, but
sure.
And then we get to the point, Matt, where the True Knot puts on porn specifically to fuck with Abra, just in case she's watching, and it works. King pulls a kind of a structural fast one on us here, having Barry, pick up on something, feel something. He whispers something to Crow, and then the book cuts away from that conversation before we get to see the resolution of it, only so we can kind of make sure we land on this surprise moment a little bit later. King actually does this quite a bit in this novel. I mean, especially in just this part, right? There's two instances of it specifically in these chapters of, we have this one, and then we have Dan with Conchetta a little bit later. And we pull away from that conversation only to loop back around to it so we can get the reveal of Uncle Dan to land a little bit harder. But in this one, King is kind of calling attention to it in very specific ways. Like, I like what the book says here. There had been one unsettling moment when a pornographic image filled Dan's mind, some kind of group sex by the pool, but it had gone almost at once. He supposed he had gotten a peek into her undermind, where, if you believe Dr. Freud, all sorts of primal images lurked. There was an assumption. This was an assumption he would come to regret, although never to blame himself for. He had taught himself not to snoop into people's most private things. I think this is a great opportunity for us to get into something that I think we both kind of agree on in the way the book handles this thing that we've just complimented, this trick that Crow essentially plays on Abra, and the trick that the book plays on us. But the part about it we don't necessarily like, right?
So specifically, I think you mean the fact that there's kind of no consequences.
Yes.
So, right here it says he would come to regret this mistake. And it's like, okay, yes, it was a mistake, but there are no long-term consequences to this mistake.
Yeah. So the moment of regret he had was in like the 1 hour between when Abra is kidnapped and when he gets into Abra's body and saves her. That is the moment that he was like, oh, I regret that thing.
Yeah.
It's just like these kind of sentences, this King doing this thing that he does is almost exclusively like reserved for like, and that was the last we ever saw of that person. It's moments of great upheaval and disruption in the story. Somebody dies or something goes horribly wrong or something, and he's kind of laying it out there for us. And yeah, I think in this instance, there's no consequence to Abra getting kidnapped long term.
Exactly. I think it becomes very difficult for us not to talk about the Flanagan adaptation, even though we've done a really good job not doing that in the last 5 weeks. So I'll just say, like, the main difference is that in the Flanagan adaptation, I'm calling it a set piece, even though it's more like a sequence, I guess. It has consequences. It hurts.
Somebody dies.
Somebody dies in the adaptation. Whereas in this, it's just like, the heroes are basically get out of it scot-free. And it is, it's almost more of like an adventure tone. I think one thing that I can tell myself to sort of not hold it against the book is just to say the tone of this book is kind of just different from the tone of the movie. The tone of the movie is a lot kind of darker and more tragic in some ways. But then again, this book also has a child torture murder scene, so it's not exactly an adventure story either.
It is the kind of thing that, like, I think the beat-to-beat moments of, like, and we'll get into all this in a second, but the reveal of like, wait, where's Crow? Wait, he's not there. Oh my God, he's out front. Oh my God, he's taking out Billy and he's capturing Abra, and the what are they going to do? How are they going to out of this? Like, I think the beat to beat, moment to moment of all that works really, really well. To me, it's only kind of the post fact realization of like, oh, so we saved her, and then that's the end. That there was no, like, I mean, let's come right out and say it. Like, one of the reasons why Abra gets captured is she had a little bit of hubris going on. That, like, Barry dies, and she's like, oh, okay. The guy who can search for me is gone now, so I can drop the act, and I'm just gonna go home. And, like, everything in Billy is telling him that's a bad idea, but he doesn't say anything to her. And it's like, oh, that was stupid. That was stupid. That was stupid. This is going to have devastating consequences. And it doesn't. I mean, it has, like, it's so hard to say this because it has obviously it has plot consequences, and it has tension consequences, because, like, this drives the next conflict, which is the whole idea of Dan having to swap with her and then battle Barry or battle Crow in the car as he's, like, controlling the body of a girl who's, like, half drunk by being drugged. But, like, again, that all works. That's all functional. But it just feel a little bit weird here that, like, we didn't do anything long term, like, consequence wise with any of it.
I think I can even just say, like, there are two things in this week's reading that bug me from, like, a character choice point of view, and this is really actually more central to what I don't like anyway. Not so much the contrast with the movie as just, like, I think these character choices don't make sense on their own merits. One of them, and now we're going slightly out of order, but that's fine. One of them is when Abra leaves the house, because I'm just like, why would you do that? Like, it's not, like, it's fine for a child character in a book to behave stupidly because they're a child. Like, I get, I'm not mad when my characters don't act perfectly rationally, but I literally don't know why she left the house. I'm just like, there's no positive reason to have done that. So
yeah,
that bugged me. And the other thing that bugged me is the fact that Crow left Billy alive in the car in the first place. Like, I just thought, like, it was so obvious to me that what this character would do is he would either just immediately kill him, or he would, like, tranquilize him, and then he would, like, dramatically kill him at some later point when Abra was trying to escape, and it would be, like, a scarring and shocking moment. But the fact that Billy is just in this car, Crow gets the drop on him, puts him to sleep, and he just wakes up and he's just fine. after there was a car accident and a gun went off, and you're just kind of like, I almost wonder, I'm not saying I really think this happened, but I almost wonder if King didn't write a draft where Billy's killed, and then he finds himself in the position of being like, okay, all these characters are going to be so preoccupied with what to do with this dead body that they're not going to be able to just move on to the next necessary plot beat. And you know, Dan's not going to be able to have this heart-to-heart with his sister in a kitchen over scrambled eggs because he just got his best friend killed.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think that's a great point, because it's not only that, it's like solving those emotional beats and how you have to change the book for that, but it's also just solving, like, plot problems. Or, like, one of the things Billy in the car does is make it so Dan Abra only has to drive the car for a very, very short amount of time, and then we can have, okay, Billy, you hop in the car now. And I feel like that is a thing that, it's really funny, because that's a thing that the movie just says, oh no, we can just do that, actually, and we can just play that straight and just have Abra has to drive the car. And that's a little funny, a little goofy, but also, like, we can just play into that. I mean, I don't think those things in particular bothered me as much. I mean, I agree with you. Like, it felt like, here's what I'll say. It felt like Abra's choice to leave didn't make any sense. And it only made sense in the context of she's getting overconfident. She thinks we've got these guys handled. She thinks I'm more powerful than them. And we're starting to see a little bit of Abra's negative traits kind of start to push to the surface. And I think that's true in these chapters. Like, that is just a true statement that I just said here. The thing is, because that doesn't have any kind of actual consequences yet, I just don't know what to do with it. Like, I mean, I think it's a fair question right now. We've got, at the end of this week's reading, we've got like 70 pages left in the book. We've got our final confrontation coming. What are we doing with Abra as a character? Like, are we meant, and this perhaps gets into a little bit of the why she is related to Dan and Jack. Like, what are we exploring with this character? Who are we trying to explore a concept of traits passed down via heredity and the way to escape from that? Like, and if that's the case, like, how should we feel about Abra going into this stuff, and how should we feel about Dan going into this stuff? And I have a lot of questions on that. Like, we have moments where Dan successfully handles his rage. We have moments where Abra seems cocky and angry and barely has a handle on hers. And it's like, are we going to do something with that?
I mean, it certainly feels like that's what we're doing, right? So again, this isn't a super strong element of the movie that I can recall, or at least it's not central. So I'm just like, okay, this is an element. I don't know where we're going. It feels like we're going somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe, like, the funny thing is, I remember I have the movie and the book so blurred in my head now that I honestly, speaking honestly to everyone, do not remember the exact beats of how this whole thing wraps up, and so I don't know if all this is going to pay off perfectly. So there's the very real possibility that this time next week I'm sitting in front of you eating crow, because I'm like, no, actually everything that was set up here worked perfectly, and I am much less angry about X, Y, and Z. I don't think that's going to happen, because I feel like if that happened the first time I read the book, I wouldn't have such a bad taste about these things particular in my mouth still. But I want to be open-minded. So yeah. I think we went kind of all over the place there, but I think it's important to set these things up, because I also just generally agree with you. It makes it tough when there is a clear example of, like, I think, I talked at the very beginning of this whole thing that I thought Flanagan's film, especially the director's cut, was better than this book. And part of the reason is because it does seem like he takes things that feel a little narratively clunky and just streamlines them in a way that's like, oh, that is just better. That is just, actually, that just works better in every way, every possible way. So
I feel the same. And I honestly think now that we're kind of through this discussion, I'm going to mostly have good stuff to say going forward, because I just feel like those are the things that bugged me, but there's a ton of great character stuff. By the way, a lot of the character stuff is not in the movie because these characters aren't in the movie. So like I'm not, I think, like, honestly, on the whole, like, on the scales, I actually like these chapters. It's just like a weird concentration of stuff that bugged me.
Sure. Speaking of which, the thing I really love what King does here is, at some point we're with the True Knot, and at some point outside of the scope of the book, they drop Crow off in Anniston. We don't learn about this till later, and he exits the RV. But the book is holding back on that moment intentionally. This is a structural thing King is doing, like we talked about. And so what King does here in these moments where we're with the True Knot in the RV is he doesn't actually directly point out that Crow is not in the camper anymore. He just kind of either doesn't mention him, or he uses very clever sentence construction like this that says, Jimmy went up to the front and dropped into the passenger seat, which Crow had vacated. And, like, you could read that sentence and just be like, oh, Crow got out of the passenger seat and we went to the back of the RV. That's what happened. And Jimmy sat in that seat. But what the book is actually telling you is Crow is not in the RV anymore. And I think that's just such a clever way of, like, very fairly and earnestly not telling you and holding information back from you, but not directly, like, lying to your face either. I think it's just, I think that was very, very elegant the way King did that.
I love it too. And the whole setup, the whole twist of where's Crow? Yeah, it's fantastic, actually.
It is. So just as they get to Cloud Gap, the chunk cycles out for the last time and dies. Miss that guy. What a guy, What a great guy that is.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss talking about him.
Mm-hmm. So the True Knot have lost their best tracker, and Abra, of course, decides that we're good, and she heads home. We already talked about this, so we'll just kind of move on. She heads home. She sees Billy across the street and waves at him that everything's fine, and Billy is like, "No, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea, actually," but he doesn't do anything about it. And meanwhile, Team Shoot the Vampires is setting things up at Cloud Gap, and I love this quote, Matt. I needed to read it to you. Abra's father, an agnostic by inclination, but a Catholic by association, made the sign of the cross in the air, and then followed John into the woods.
I gotta tell you, that's what I would do if I was gonna go fight some vampires.
I immediately thought of you when I saw that. An agnostic by inclination, but a Catholic by association. I was like, oh, that's Matt Freeman.
That's the perfect description. Thank you.
This whole build up. You know, we've talked glowingly about some of it, but like the way we really ramp up to this battle that's about to break out, I think is just really good. Like we're cutting back and forth. There's like much smaller subsections. The king numbered subsections. There's a lot. They're happening more frequently. We're cutting back between Dan and Abra and Billy and the True Knot, and we're just like ramping everything up as everyone comes to this moment of confrontation. Like I really, really like all that. I really do.
Yeah, it's chaotic and ugly and realistic and also fun. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And the True Knot show up and get out of the camper, and Snakebite Andy makes Dan go to sleep, or, well, she's about to, but then Abra, panicking, sends a message to Dan's brain about the fact that Crow is missing, which manages to wake him up just in time. The fight ensues, and, I mean, Matt, Team AA just kind of kicks the shit out of these vampires, right? I think, like, pretty handedly just defeats them.
Yeah.
And I like that the book even kind of lampshades this. It offers an explanation for this. It's just like, these people are not warriors. They're not soldiers. They're not fighters. They trick and kidnap children and then eat them. That's what they do. And so they are so incredibly unused to having any kind of real resistance or conflict or anything like that, that a few guys show up with guns one morning and they're just completely unprepared to deal with that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like, even if they were good at fighting, whatever that means in this context, there's not a lot of recourse when you're in the middle of a sniper ambush that you had no idea was going to happen. And that connects to the other thing, which is how, strategically unprepared they are. Like, basically, you could say this is their failure as like a, unit, but it's almost more so Rose's failure as their leader for completely failing to have any awareness that Abra has backup, support, no awareness whatsoever of Dan Torrance, and the fact that Abra has a friend and this other incredibly powerful psychic guy.
Yeah.
She's just totally blindsided by all this.
I think that is something worth actually saying out loud, because I don't know if we've actually said that. The idea that the True Knot has no idea that Dan Torrance exists. That like, even through the end of this week's reading, Dan Torrance is still a complete unknown to every member of the True. Obviously, the ones that knew about him died pretty immediately after that. But like this is this huge kind of trump card that they have that is Dan, and they just don't know about him at all. So yeah, I mean, like, I think blaming Rose for this is very apt. Like, she sent these people into this thing without any real understanding of anything. And the thing is, like, Rose knows how powerful this girl is. Like, she does. So it is she's making a lot of assumptions on this girl's capability and the people around her's capability, but she's just wrong again and again and again and again. Yeah. And it blows up in their face. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting sort of meditation on the arrogance of that she has cultivated after hundreds of years, literally, of killing weak, defenseless victims, and thinking that this makes her, skilled at, like, oh, I'm so crafty, I'm so good at being manipulative. It's like, no, you're just good at tricking children. And doing it doesn't matter. If I only ever play 4-year-olds at chess, that doesn't mean I'm really good at chess if I usually win. No matter how many games against 4-year-olds I play. So
yeah, 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 and I think it is kind of, speaking back again to Abra's decision to leave the house and kind of her brimming with confidence. I think there is a connection we're meant to be made here between Abra and Rose. Like, again, Dan is our primary character in this book, but our antagonist doesn't know he exists. So the protagonist antagonist conflict that exists in this book is Abra and Rose, and they do reflect each other a lot. There is a way, a version of Abra that you could see become not like the child murdering monstrous part of Rose, but like the arrogant, um like assumption that she's in control and has power. Like Rose is a woman who's had power both just generally and within her group, the True Knot, for so long that she's just kind of become arrogant about it, and she
mhm.
just thinks that she can control everything and get whatever she wants and all this stuff, and that's just not true. And you could see maybe Abra, this incredibly powerful young woman, could go down that path. Maybe that
Yeah.
she has a little bit of an anger problem, and she's a little bit, maybe she has a little bit of Jack's ego, right? That's something we talked about with Jack last week, that he had a huge ego.
Yeah.
And we could see those, not the same mistakes that Rose makes. I'm not saying I think Abra's going to turn into like a vampire monster here, but just like the comparison is there. The foil for her is there, and
Yeah.
the might be, the could be is there.
I think we're meant to notice this symmetry between these two characters, where
Yeah.
maybe even Rose and Abra are more similar in some ways, in some specific ways, than even like Abra and Dan are.
Yeah.
Like Abra and Dan, they both have this anger, but I think we've been pretty consistent that like the stuff that makes Dan really angry is like can literally name the two that come to mind. A little child was hurt, and a really old man was hurt.
Yeah.
So he gets really mad when innocent people are hurt, which is a pretty like positive and heroic quality actually. But like Jack Torrance got mad when people wouldn't let him write a book about the hotel that he wanted to write. And and Abra, for her part, I think she's a lot more kind of justice oriented like Dan is, but also I do think there are signs of that ego you're talking about with Abra.
Let's put I want to talk about this, but like here in just like a couple seconds, I want to jump back to that, because I
Sure.
think there's something that happens that I think perfectly leads into that conversation. But before we get there, I do want to just point out one thing I noticed that was weird, not in a bad way, but like this just chapter and all of this has been in kind of pretty close third person with Dan and the rest of his team the entire time. And then they see the character of Walnut begin to cycle, and the book says he was cycling rapidly. And I just thought that was weird, because like that is not a word that anyone on Dan's side would know to ascribe to what is happening to those characters. That's what the True Knot call it. And so it's almost like the narrator speaking up here. This is not a close third person. We're not hearing the thoughts or seeing the observations of Dan Torrance. It's Stephen King almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I was thinking about this because I like that you pointed this out, and I think there are reasons to do it this way, because if you interjected into this scene like Dan's first impression of someone cycling, and you don't do it kind of in the right way, there's a risk it just takes all the wind out of the sails of like the propulsiveness of the moment.
Sure.
And furthermore, you're describing something that has already been described to us, the reader. So seeing Dan, like it's like, okay, we already know what cycling is. Move past it, right? So I think it's just a functional choice, really.
Yeah, I agree. But it is just completely that, but it makes an interesting kind of idea about, is there a narrative voice in this book? Because there hasn't been, like, King does that sometimes, right? Where he assumes like the storyteller role, and we have a clear narrative voice in the story. We haven't really had that in this book. It has always been a very close third person with whichever character we happen to be following at the time. So It just stuck out to me for sure.
Yeah.
So they go over to Andy, the last of the True Knot here to get shot, and the last still alive. She's in really bad shape. Her jaw is like completely shattered, and she's, in classic Andy fashion, mad at all men. And Dan demands to know where Crow is, and after kind of briefly torturing Andy, she relents and says Crow is an Aniston. And then we get this passage here, and this is what I want to kind of link back up to what you were talking about before. So I'll read this, we can talk about it. Dan thought of what Abra said these monsters had done to Brad Trevor in Iowa, how they had tortured him, and God only knew how many others, and felt an almost ungovernable urge to tear the lower half of this murdering bitch's face entirely off, to beat her bleeding, shattered skull with her own jawbone until both skull and bone disappeared. Then, absurdly given the circumstances, he thought of the kid in the Braves t-shirt reaching for the leftover Coke piled on the shiny magazine cover. Canny, he said. This woman was nothing like that kid, nothing. But telling himself so did no good. His anger was suddenly gone, leaving him feeling hurt, sick, weak, and empty. Don't hurt me anymore, Daddy. So this is really fascinating to me, because to link back up what we were talking about before, Dan Torrance is not like his father, right? Does he have some anger issues? Yes. Does he have an issue with alcohol? Obviously, yes. But the book, in my opinion, has made it very clear that Dan is nothing like his dad, essentially. That the things that happened to his father in The Shining probably would not happen to Dan in the same way. And there's moments like this where you have these build up to these moments of like, oh God, he's going to go too far. Oh God, he's going to let his rage consume him. Oh God, I'm terrified for him and of him simultaneously. And then the book just kind of has Dan get through it and process it and deal with it, and it goes away. And I think that's it makes perfect sense in a book that is about recovery, and a book about how you get better from the things that plague you, that plagued his father. But it does create this really interesting thing, like you're talking about, where like we kind of have to wonder, what are we doing with some of these characters? Are we meant to be scared that Dan could go Jack Torrance at any moment? I don't believe so. I think we've seen enough at this point in the book to know that even in a moment where, Abra's in imminent danger in this moment, Crow is in her hometown. He could be catching her right now. Even in this moment, he cannot bring himself to let his anger go. So it's just kind of clear to me now that the book is not playing with a will he or won't he of go too far in a Jack Torrance kind of way.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily know what to do with that. And this, by the way, let me be clear here, since we've had so many critiques so far this episode. This is not a critique of the book. I am just pointing out something that I find really fascinating to me.
Yeah. I do feel like we're setting something up, right? I feel like part of me wishes that King would spoon feed me a little bit more here, because I think he's good about knowing like how much he needs to explain versus how much he can go through implication and nuance. And I feel like this is a little too much on the nuance side for me to get it, but maybe that's just because he is building towards something, and then we're going to get it really strongly by the end. Mm-hmm. Because as it is, it's like, okay, well, there's like two obvious ways to go. It's like, okay, he faces Rose, and either he like experiences anger, and then he masters himself and defeats her with, from a calm place, and you're like, okay, what does that mean? I don't know. And or there's like he, the anger is used against him, or he just gets really mad and kills her, and then feels a certain way about it. And I don't know. Maybe it's nothing like this at all, right? Maybe it's almost just like his role is to help Abra deal with her anger or something. I don't know, like a generational thing where he has to teach her the lessons that he learned or something. like that's the thing is I don't like things to be formulaic. Nobody likes things to be formulaic where you just know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I do like to have a sense of the direction we're headed, you know?
Yeah, I think the formulaic version of this character arc is that in this moment, maybe this would be the perfect point of it. Dan goes too far. He makes a mistake and he hits his low point of the story. And then we go into the finale going like, oh, geez, I don't know how to feel about this guy right now. And we dodge that. We dodge it again, like we dodged it with what's his name back at the hospice. We dodge it with every moment that we've had of Dan getting very too close to something, whether it be drinking or anger. He's navigated away from it. And we have another moment in a little bit where he feels the need to drink more than ever before. He dodges that one too. And I'm not saying, let me be clear, I'm not saying like this book that is about Dan's successfully navigating sobriety should involve him falling off the wagon. I am not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is I think it is interesting that we have a very uncertain path forward to, like you said, what the final conflict of the book is going to be. Like, obviously we know, like, plot wise, it's going to be Rose versus Abra and Dan, but like thematically, like what versus what, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing I'm forced to point towards when looking at stuff like this is that this is not a book about Dan. Like, it is almost a book in which Dan has got a handle on everything. He's got it. He's doing okay. It's been 13 years. He's not perfect. He has cravings and he has that temper flare up every once in a while, but he's got a handle on it. And so it is instead a book about little Abra and her getting to a point in her life where she's going to start to feel and experience the same temptations and the same things, and whether Dan can be the person to help lead her through that or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, one other thing I think about, which I think I don't want to prematurely segue us into the latter part of this discussion, but it's like Dan is a sort of poster child for recovery in many ways, but also I still feel like he is kind of in stasis and hasn't, it's like he's like what, mid-30s, and
he's in his mid-40s actually,
mid-40s maybe, and it's like he doesn't seem to have like moved forward with his life in some sense. Like he seems to have, it's like he's this tumbleweed that was blown around for the first decade of his life, and then he finally found like a resting place to stop rolling, but he didn't like drop roots and start flourishing. He's just like sitting there.
Yeah.
He's working at the hospice. He's doing fantastically valuable work, but he's kind of just running out the clock in some ways. I don't want to be like too hard on the guy because he's kind of a great guy, right? But on the other hand, it's just like you feel like he's been so traumatized by his life that he's just kind of not doing much, and you want to see. So anyway, the reason this connects is like Abra, he can help Abra, but Abra can also help him.
Yeah,
and that's the stuff that I'm interested to see with his character.
I like that. One of the other things I was thinking of this week, and I'm not saying we won't get a resolution on this, but something that I think was set up very early in the book that we talked about was this idea that he has not come clean about his lowest moment, right? That what he did with what's her name and the little boy, stealing their money and leaving them there, and the guilt he carries for that. Obviously, I just read a passage where that guilt popped up once again. He has not divulged that information, and the book has kind of primed us for like, if you truly want to get to a place of recovery, if you truly want to get to a place where you're going to be able to maintain your sobriety and beat this thing, you are eventually going to have to come clean with the worst parts of you. Now it's interesting, we're 70 pages to go and that hasn't come up again. Now, certainly opportunity for that to come up in the finale of this whole thing. And I'm saying this not as like being like, sometimes I'm coy with you. I don't remember. I just do not remember. So I know it comes up again in the book, in the film, I know it does. I do not remember if it does in this novel.
Yeah.
So
we will see.
There is one more thing as we exit this chapter that I wanted to kind of get from you. Before Andy dies, she says one thing to them. She says, "We didn't choose to be what we are any more than you did. In our shoes, you do the same."
What?
Yeah. What do you mean, Andy? What do you mean? I mean, so there's a part of me that understands this, because I think the truly tragic thing about Snakebite Andy is that she was this young girl that was horrifically abused by her father, that broke her, that essentially ripped her soul out of her at a young age, to where selling her soul to the True was essentially an easy proposition for her because she didn't have it anymore. So on that level, like, you can think of maybe that's what she's talking about there. But no, you definitely did like all choose to drink children's steam.
Yeah. I think it's the addict. It's the self-excusing addict perspective, where it's like,
oh yes,
any you can imagine an alcoholic in the same position saying like, well, I drink because I was abused, and it's a it requires no deeper justification. It's like, I just am an alcoholic, and if you were an alcoholic like me, then you would drink, and so you can't blame me for drinking. And of course, Andy doesn't realize she's talking to literally a bunch of AA guys who are like, they actually take an interesting tack on this, where I was reminded of the whole like, why do you drink? Because I'm a drunk thing. From the exchange that he had earlier, where it's like, just like Snakebite Andy is a true not vampire creature, in Dan's own mind, Dan is a drunk. He's a drunk who doesn't drink, but he's a drunk,
Yeah.
And so it turns it into like, it is part of you. It's part of your identity, but that doesn't dictate that you're going to act on it. And in fact, quite the opposite. You can resist it for the whole rest of your days. Yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, as you were talking, I'm reminded of our conversation last week about just the idea of the True Knot and AA being like mirrors of each other, and how they're handling these things, how they're handling the idea of community and fellowship, and also how they handle with addiction, let's say. Because we've talked about the True Knot and their desire for steam as a kind of addiction. And so, it is Andy kind of dismissing all personal responsibility for herself. It's like the idea that it is just true that like alcoholism is a disease that you can have a genetic disposition to, but like nobody that says that as like so it's fine that I drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you would just be like, no, that's the why. It doesn't excuse the behavior. And that's essentially the argument that Andy's making here. I really like that.
Yeah.
All right, chapter 14, Crow. From here, we cut back to Barry's final conversation with Crow, filling him in on what happened when Abra saw the porn. Her concentration faltered just long enough that Barry caught a mirror image of her, one up in Cloud Gap and one back at home. They decide to kind of hedge their bets, and Crow hops off the RV in order to just look around. And hey, he happens to be hanging out on the street when Abra comes strolling across the street.
It's great. I mean... setting aside that we already complained about this choice being dumb, it's a great scene. It's a fantastically tense scene. And Crow is a great villain. He's this very kind of methodical, reasonable villain. I like that King consistently characterizes him as just being this likable dude, where if you met him, you'd find him handsome and charming and likable. And he's kind of, slightly funny, but not too funny,
Yeah.
Just a great villain.
Mm-hmm. Crow first takes out Billy, then gets to Abra, who has just gotten hit by a huge angry blast of Rose's energy, once again trying to crawl around in her head. Abra manages to push Rose out once again, but unfortunately in doing so, she's distracted and tired out enough that Crow gets the jump on her. He hits her with the medicine, knocks her out, and loads her and Billy into Billy's car. and takes off. He calls Rose, telling her he's got the good news. Rose is happy that she's caught, but pissed, and promising Abra will pay for her crimes. We get a whole beat here where Sari is inconsolable. Sari is the girlfriend of Andy. She's absolutely distraught and destroyed that her loved one is dead now. And I think I brought this up specifically just to hit the beat once again, that like, while these people are certainly monsters, they're awful, they're terrible. We always take the time for them to have human emotions. They are sad when people they love die. I like what you talked about Crow as this villain who is very methodical, and like, I love the uncertainty with which he decides to get off the RV. He's kind of hedging bets here, but he's not sure if he's making the right move or not. These people have doubts. They're not sure. They are essentially, they are human without being human, I think, and it's really interesting.
You reminded me of something that I just remembered I wanted to talk about, but very briefly, like, this is a great moment showing what a shitty leader Rose is somewhere in here, because Crow is like, should I get off in Aniston? I'm paraphrasing severely, but he's like, should I get off in Aniston? And she's like, I don't know, man, it's your call. And then like in her mind, she's like, but if he fucks this up, it's going to be his ass. And it's like, you make the call then if you're going to be the leader.
Yeah.
And it actually just, I think I mentioned previously that like Crow is actually just very competent. And I think Rose doesn't even realize how much she relies on Crow's competence, and like probably thinks all of their success is due to her own incredible leadership, when actually a lot of it is just Crow being a really reliable operator.
Yeah.
And now he's gone. So,
well, why didn't Rose go east? Right?
Yeah.
Like, she says she's got reasons for it, but ultimately, like, if this is the cow of steamheads, if this is the most powerful steamhead ever that you're going to try this whole new system of, instead of hunting, just like keeping this person and then slowly draining her over time to get unlimited steam, wouldn't you, the leader of the organization, want to be in on the whole plan to capture her? This is one of the most important people you guys have ever experienced in your entire centuries long lives, and she sends other people to do it, and then she sends other people to collect them. Like, that's the next thing that happens, is she says, don't worry Crow, because I got my best people on it. I'm sending Diesel Doug, Dirty Phil, and Apron Annie. And this is my best. Diesel Doug.
What are you doing, Rose? She's taking a shower. That's a great, no, she's literally like luxuriating in a shower that nobody else gets access to because it's her privilege. No, she's just become totally soft.
Yep.
It's great.
Meanwhile, she's she's relying on Dirty Phil. I just like, so we've talked a lot about the Trues names for each other, and like, I have to think King chuckled to himself when he wrote down, I'm sending Diesel Doug, Dirty Phil, and Apron Anning, because I'm not supposed to take these people seriously at this point, right? Like, that's absurd. That's absolutely absurd.
If all of those people just died in a horrible RV accident on the way there, you wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So they continue to drive north, and I just had to pull this out for you, Matt. Crow didn't think she was shamming, but he continued to hold the hypo next to the geezer's leg just to be sure. As Gollum had once said about Frodo Baggins, it was tricksy, precious. It was very tricksy. So there's your Lord of the Rings reference of the week, Matt.
What's that quoting? What's that from?
The Hobbit.
No, it's great. I love it when he does this pointlessly.
It is okay. This is not a real complaint. I want to preface this before I say it, but like, this reads bad to me. I think one thing that we will learn about Crow is that, as you said, he's like hyper competent, very smart. He's actually very well read. He does a lot of literary references. Like, he mentioned Shakespeare to Abra multiple times while he's got her kidnapped.
Yeah.
This just, to me, feels like one of these classic, like, Stephen King is writing away, and then like just something pops into his head, and he's just like, I'm just gonna throw this down.
Yeah.
It just like, it's like, huh? What?
Yeah. I kind of agree that it felt like it came out of nowhere in this moment. As much of a sucker as I am for Lord of the Rings references, obviously, I don't even have to say this.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, ashamed he made the connection before I did, I guess, except I don't
No,
really.
you're not. No, you're not.
I'm not actually, because I'm like, what does Abra have to do with Frodo?
Yeah.
That's my real problem there. And it's not a problem at all, actually. It's just like, it's just
I
kind of
I
silly.
just think it's very funny. This was, by the way, one of those moments that I realized that my feeling about the Uncle Dan stuff was coloring how I'm taking in everything else in the chapter. That I was like, that I did not like this, and like I just flat out don't think this is very good. But it's not bad in a way that like hurts anything.
No.
It just it's like such a non sequitur that you're just like, oh, that just reads a little silly on the page.
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
oh, okay.
I agree.
Abra wakes up from her drug sleep saying she feels hungover, a charged word if I've ever seen one in this book about alcoholics, right? Crow has Abra go pump gas and rewards her with a Coke and a water. He gets a Fanta himself, which there you go, folks. Just confirms once and for all that Fanta are the drinks of the enemy.
Does everybody just assume orange, Fanta orange? Is that just the assumption?
No, I absolutely. I know there are other Fanta flavors, but it's orange.
When I lived overseas, there were like whole fast food joints where they just served Fanta products, and you would just be like, which of the Fanta Cola? I like Fanta.
Do you like Fanta, or do you like American Fanta?
I didn't realize there was a difference.
So like European, so like I think European and like Mexican Fanta like is not as brightly orange colored, and actually the orange soda has actual orange juice in it. And then us wonderful Americans, we just have artificial food dye, orange flavored carbonated soda drink.
I'll take anything I can get, man, as long as it's orange.
I do really like orange soda. I've been an orange soda person. I don't drink that much soda anymore. I haven't had orange soda in like a long time.
Right.
A long time.
That's the nice thing about being old and not drinking any soda ever, is that every once in a while you get like, you drink like this much. I'm holding up like an inch. You get like drink like that much of it. Nice cold crisp Fanta, and it's like a million snorts of cocaine, I imagine.
Man, now I want a Fanta.
Me too. I'm really thirsty for Fanta right now.
All I can think of is the damn commercial.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, so Abra asks to go to the bathroom, and while on the toilet, she summons every bit of strength she has to try to reach out to Dan. She doesn't manage to find him, but the chapter ends and we switch over to Dan in chapter 15. It's titled Swapsies. So we cut back to Dan and company now, still reeling from what they call, quote, the Pyrrhic victory at Cloud Gap. I liked that. I think that's, I don't know. It's my one think about Roe moment of the day. So, Dan is like mysteriously finding himself haunted by a phrase he hasn't heard in a long time. The phrase, "You will remember what was forgotten." Of course, if you haven't read The Shining or it's been a while, that was a reference to the boiler, as the book kindly reminds us of. But here in this book, it's about that Abra's his niece.
It's about steam, at least. It's about but in a different way.
Mm-hmm. I did also want to point out that he's trying to figure out where this voice is, this line is coming from, and it says, was it the voice of his old friend trying to tell him something about their current situation, or just the gramophone? So there's our connection back to the poem. That was great.
He said the thing.
Yep. Dave once again wants to call the police, and they once again illustrate to him why that would be a super bad idea. I just want to say we haven't focused on John very much in the book outside of a couple times, and I just wanted to state here, like, I love how instrumental John is in all of this. Ultimately, like, a really great character that was just kind of brought in on this thing, is like fully taken in the responsibility of all of it. He's the one here that kind of explains to Dave why bringing the police into this thing would be a really, really bad idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good. Really good character interactions. The fact that Dan kind of knows that he can't be the one who talks to Dave about this, but John is, because John is very reasonable, sort of has this authority about him. Um, there's a lot of talking in these chapters, but that is not one of the things that I'm complaining about. I thought it was all, good character moments and really engrossing dialogues, and just I don't know. I love this stuff. I love these interactions.
Yeah, me too. So Dan suddenly feels this almost unstoppable urge to drink, and as he prays to God or whatever higher power exists, something finally clicks for him. He says that they're now heading up to Boston to meet with Lucy, and then go head on over to Conchetta's hospital because he has something he needs to talk about with her. And Dan doesn't say why yet. He doesn't explain any of this. I'm curious, at what point had you put everything together, Matt? At what was it when Dan tells it, or had you kind of figured it out slightly before the book reveals it to you?
Definitely later than this point, but maybe fairly briefly before it's revealed.
Mm-hmm. It's really funny because I was like, obviously there's multiple moments where Abra does the wipe her mouth thing that is supposed to be remnant of Jack, and I was very intentionally pulling like every moment that quote, not every, but almost every moment that the book mentions Abra wiping her face or her mouth, and I was always pulling those quotes and then very intentionally talking about something else in the quote to kind of distract you from the fact that it was in the quote, but seeing if you put it together. And then last week you're just like, are we supposed to be connecting it to Jack or something? And I was like, maybe.
You've got to give me most credit for that.
Maybe.
Because I was like, is that a Jack? I think I said, is that a Jack Torrance mannerism?
Yeah.
But to me, I was just like, to me, I assumed if there was going to be any Jack Torrance mannerisms that Abra had, that it would be like a psychic thing, not a literally genetically related thing. So
yeah, and I think I tried to play it off as just like, maybe not, they're actually related, but it's more just the book is very intentionally having us draw lines between these characters in The Shining and these characters, and so like you are led to believe that Dave could resemble Jack in the ways they're setting up the writing stuff, and now we're led to believe that Abra could resemble Jack in the ways she's has some of his mannerisms, but not necessarily that was a specific setup for they are actually blood relatives. He is her grandfather,
right?
We will get there.
Yep.
So on the ride up north, Dan gets in the back seat and starts meditating. He starts reaching out for Abra. This happens to be when she's right on the toilet searching for him, and they manage to find each other. And with Dan's help, Abra is able to once again turn the world. They Swapsies. And I guess when a new consciousness is in your body, it's the consciousness that's been drugged, not the body. So he's not drugged in Abra's body anymore. So he's back. He's back, baby.
Yep. That's how drugs work.
Yep. I mean, look, if measles can be transmitted via steam, then consciousness and drugs are linked.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Honestly, it's fine. I just had to comment. I love when Abra's dad turns and looks in the back seat and sees him like lying down and is like, "Good God, are you sleeping?" Because he's just furious. He's like, "Shut up, I'm meditating."
He is like the perfect like audience surrogate that like kind of like is consistently talking about how like fucking crazy all of this shit is, and it's like just like to level set like and acknowledge that the stuff that's happening in this book is nuts. Is absolutely nuts.
And then suddenly Dan starts speaking with Abra's voice in the car, like and his reactions to these things are just delightful.
Yeah. So Dan searches inside Abra and finds her well of power. It's visualized as a bunch of switches that are connected to her great strength. He flips them all. He throws the breakers, and here we go. A struggle inside the car ensues as Abra, Dan, and Crow all struggle with the gun. Billy wakes up just in time to throw his weight into the fight. Yeah, maybe should have killed him, Crow Daddy. And it's enough. It's enough that Dan gets a 1-over on Crow. He turns the gun towards him and fires. And there we go. Crow's dead. Our favorite true knotter, dead.
So sad.
Really? I mean, he did still murder and torture and eat children.
Well, we'll miss him though.
But he was like cool, man.
Yeah, he was like the cool uncle of the True Knot.
Yeah. So I think we already talked. We don't have to circle back on this again because we already talked about like the kind of shock at, oh, this is over and there was no consequence of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Abra's safe now. Everyone's safe. We're good. Now let's kind of wrap this thing up and then move on to the next conflict. We already talked about that a little bit, so we don't have to relitigate that.
Yep.
So Rose is angry. She's furious, and she calls back Trash Can Terry and Stinky Steve or whatever the fuck their names are, and decides that they're all going to group up in Colorado, take steam together, take all the steam. They're going to empty the canisters and then strike out all against Abra at once. But Matt, the rest of their incredibly tight-knit family, they don't seem like they think that's like a good idea. And they're like, hey, maybe we should just like leave her alone, maybe.
Yeah.
And stop. Maybe we should stop, actually.
Yeah. Let's just keep picking off the easy pickings as we've always done and not go after terrifying girls who kill several of our number easily.
Yeah. So a little bit of division in the knot. You know, maybe you can untie a knot.
Yeah.
You try hard enough.
The Gordian knot trick that Alexander the Great proposed.
Not that it's going to matter, though, whether they just kind of hang out on their own, because Abra appears in Rose's mind with one final message. Don't bother coming to me, Rose. I'll come to you. To which I say, Abra.
Abra crazy.
Come on, man. Why are you challenging the mean old lady?
Yeah, I mean, ironically, despite us sort of, criticizing Abra's behavior, she does a good job, like dealing with Crow, and then this may actually end up being just the right thing to say to make Rose completely unhinged with rage and thus, unsound. So
yeah. Which, I mean, is really ironic because, like, I think, I don't remember exactly when it is in this chapter, but there's one moment where Rose is like, oh, good, she's going to get mad. And when she's mad, she's going to make mistakes. It was like, Rose, look in the mirror.
Right.
My dude. Yeah. So Dan, still in Abra's body, tries desperately to wake Billy up because he needs him to drive to safety because Abra's her feetsies don't reach the pedals. He sprays him with the devil's drink, Fanta, and then drives to a nearby camp road where he has Billy take over. And, we talked about how Dave is kind of an audience surrogate, like pointing out how crazy all this is. I think Billy serves that as well, as he says, quote, "This is fucked to the sky, buddy."
Yeah, it's great. It's really funny.
He just wakes up and he realizes he's talking to Dan and Abra's body.
Yeah.
And it's delightful.
It's described in such a fun way.
Yeah. Billy sobers up enough to drive Abra and Dan, or to drive, and Abra and Dan turn the wheel back and they swap back into their correct bodies. Billy and Abra check into a motel to sleep off the drug, but not before she talks satisfactorily about how she reached out to Rose and knows how much she hurt her and just how fucking glad it makes her.
Yeah. So once again, we're doing some of this dark Abra stuff, where I think, just agreeing with what you said earlier, that like it's not like we're saying, oh, she's going to become the next Rose the Hat and wander the countryside eating children, but this is a component of her character. This like anger and vengefulness and kind of like spitefulness. It's dark,
Yeah.
It's kind of like with the thing with Dan and his anger. It's like I don't quite know what to do with it, but I'm beginning to just feel like, okay, well, both of these characters have this anger issue. So does Rose, for that matter. Clearly, we're heading somewhere with all of this, so I'm just going to stop talking about it and just wait for it to land, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, we know we're heading back to the Overlook. Obviously not
Mhm.
the hotel itself, but the ground on which it sat. And
Yeah.
so we have two characters who are descendants of Jack Torrance, who was pretty well manipulated and destroyed by that place. And the question is, are either of them strong enough to resist that same thing this
Right.
time?
Right.
So our chapter ends with Rose like unhinging her jaw and drinking deep of one of the canisters. I don't know if I like actually. I guess when I thought. So is this just like Rose has like a secret form that's like a spooky vampire form that only comes out sometimes?
I
I
think
thought it was
so.
just more metaphorical.
I thought it was too, but I actually kind of love this, by the way, because I thought that like when Abra saw them maybe feeding at some point, it's like she saw this form of them maybe, but I took that as metaphorical,
Mm-hmm.
or just like their spiritual form. But
Yeah.
I think maybe this is the like third act reveal is like no, they literally turn into horrifying monsters when they feed on steam. We just haven't mentioned that up till that point. And I would be fine if that was true. That'd be cool. What you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. I mean, I like it as this idea that they are monsters posing as people, and like the idea of the beauty and youth that forever that is Rose is just a veneer
Mhm.
over this dark person beneath. Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure. All right, chapter 16, That Which Was Forgotten. Here we go. The penultimate chapter of this week's reading has Dan and John head towards Momo's hospital room while Dave picks up and fills Lucy in on what's been going on in her absence. I'm sure that conversation is gonna go great. I really like that we're set up that actually it's not in a really in like really fundamental levels, right? I think it's John that says this is gonna strain the hell out of his marriage no matter how it turns out. And Dan says, when a natural disaster happens, no one's to blame. And John's response is, try making Lucy Stone see that. And I love this as like this thing happened and it's nobody's fault necessarily.
Mhm.
But that doesn't matter too much. It's not going to matter to Lucy, who is left out of something in which her daughter was in imminent danger. And like, okay, I like Dave Stone. I like him a lot. And I understand why the plan called for him to not be in the same place as his daughter because he needs to pretend like he's taking her up to the picnic area. I would have said, come up with a new plan, and I would not have left my daughter's side. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way you convince me to do
Yeah.
that.
Just say, "Hey, Uncle John is taking you up to the picnic area."
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, or yeah, I kind of agree, just in terms of the situation. I think that the reason it doesn't bother me too much is just that he knows that he's out of his depth and is terrified, and so
Yeah.
he's kind of deferring responsibility. There's almost like a theme in this book of like letting other people make decisions for you. Um, I don't know that I can expound on that off the cuff here, but I feel like this happened a lot lately of like abdicating responsibility for things and that being a thing that addicts do, and so on.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I it doesn't bother me. I like I just like this exchange you pulled out, by the way, because I'm having trouble putting my finger on what it is exactly, but this is like such a Dan Torrance thing to say,
Hmm.
to somebody to be like, their marriage is not good, it's gonna be bad, and he's just like, when a natural disaster happens, no one's to blame, and it's like a very reasonable, wise, um, slightly out of touch thing to say,
Yeah.
which to me is Dan Torrance to a T.
Well, and like, I wonder how much of the events at the Overlook Hotel he sees as a kind of natural disaster,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, in many ways, they went up to this hotel and got snowed in, um, and the natural disaster was spooky ghosts.
right.
So, um, Yeah, I think he wants like this really interesting kind of push and pull we've been talking about with Dan and his father the whole book, that like he loves his father
Right.
still all these years later, despite everything. He loves his dad, and of course he does. This is his father. This is what we talked about with The Shining, this incredibly complicated relationship with the child and their parent, even if their parent is abusive and awful. It's messed up. It's why it messes with you so much. And I think referring to the events of the Overlook as a natural disaster, that I can't say, like, this wasn't my dad's fault. This was nobody's fault. This just happened. I get that.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Dan makes it to the hospital and uses his hospice credentials to get up to Conchetta's room. She's in a coma, but he uses the Shining and Abra's need to pull her out of it. They speak for a while, and Matt King holds the information for us for the big reveal. We talked about this already, that he does this several times in this week's reading. We kind of cut away from Dan as he's talking to Conchetta, and we don't get to see what they talked about until later. I'm wondering, did you like this, or do you think would this have maybe worked more effectively if this was the moment we learned about Uncle Dan?
I actually like this as it was. I thought it was really beautifully written. The whole Conchetta death scene had that feeling of like, this is one of the reasons why he wanted to write this book, is he had this scene in his mind. He had this concept of Dan as Dr. Sleep, and you never know if you're right when you say stuff like this, but I just feel like this was the image in his mind when he was like, I want to write a Dr. Sleep, the Shining sequel. So I don't mind. This is one of those times where, I know normally you and I are typically on the same page, not liking it when information is withheld from the reader, even though the character knows it. But I just thought, number one, it didn't really drag it on too long. And number two, I just thought it was beautifully written and executed.
Yeah, I understand why he wanted to build the moment with Lucy. And so he kind of dodged around it here. And I still think, despite not getting to see the detail of that conversation, we still get everything we need in the Conchetta death scene to make it impactful and powerful. I mean, obviously it echoes one of the earlier deaths that he helped someone along in. I can't remember the name of the character at the moment, but it echoes that. It's beautiful and touching just like that. I also love a lot when Lucy comes in and is like furious, and almost as if she had like some sort of genetic predisposition to anger or something. And then Dan's response to her is, "Lower your voice," Dan said without turning. "You're in the presence of death." I really loved that.
It's a totally great moment. I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast, but the audiobook reader who does this book is the same guy who did Mr. Mercedes.
Oh, okay.
And he does a fantastic job with this book. And there's like part of it is that it's beautifully written. Part of it is just that he renders it so, dramatically and fulsomely. I don't know. Just it's really good the way he does it.
Yeah, that's Will Patton, by the way.
Cool.
The actor. He's great. I love him.
Yes.
All right. So Lucy calms down. Dan takes her outside, and finally we reveal that which was forgotten. Lucy and Dan are brother and sister. Well, half brother and sister. He's actually Abra's uncle. John Torrance apparently had an affair with a young student teacher, and Abra's mama was born. And okay, here we go.
Yep.
I don't like this.
I know.
I really don't like this. I don't like this as like, and you and I were in the same town a couple weeks ago, and I was ranting to you about fucking Ray Palpatine. And while I was ranting to you about Ray Palpatine, all I was thinking about was Abra Torrance. That's all I was thinking about. So here's actually my problem with it. First of all, I just think it's silly and unnecessary, because I don't know what it does for us, right? Like do we need, in a similar way that like we need everyone to be a Skywalker because there's the only people that have the Force, does the Shining just only get powerful in this family? Also, is it only this family that has trouble with alcohol and rage issues? Like, do we need Abra to be a Torrance to discuss and explore the idea of, hey, sometimes she gets like a little angry and has a little bit of an ego, and her power that she has presents in herself in that way. Like it just doesn't matter. Like it just this is what drives me crazy. Like you could just not do it and make the same book and the same story. And I know this to be true because what did Mike Flanagan do when he looked at this? He said, absolutely not. Gone. Not doing this. I just don't like it. And it's very rare that I like disagree with Stephen King like on a fundamental level. Like there's been throughout our show and throughout all the books I've read, there's been moments where I'm like, but like this, I just completely disagree with this at like the conceptual choice level.
Yeah.
I really don't like it.
Yeah. I agree with you that it's just like, okay, so what? Like I get that there's this through line, this explicit through line from Jack to Dan and Abra and all the connections they have between them. But again, like you just said, to what end? What's the point?
He's already kind of her uncle. Like he already is serving as that role. They've been calling him Uncle Dan from the beginning. He already is serving as like a surrogate family member. We already know that she has this great power. We don't need to know where. Like, I think this is a great example of why this doesn't work. I just thought of this, but like, so the construction for this is Abra has been kidnapped. Abra is gone. Dan is beside himself and he's desperately feeling the need to drink and he doesn't know what to do. And he's praying to God or whatever. He's praying to the White for guidance on what to do next. And what happens in that moment? The White says, Abra is your niece. Okay. What the fuck does that have to do with her being kidnapped right now? Does that help me at all? No, it doesn't. And it has nothing like, so we have this moment where he says, okay, we need to get to Boston. We need to get to Boston right now so I can go confirm this information because I need to confirm this information right away. And then on the way there, I'll, free Abra from her imprisonment. It just like the book treats it as if it is this reveal that is going to fundamentally and dramatically shift how everything is going to work from here on out. But ultimately, it's just like kind of like your reaction is just like, oh, okay. Yeah. So like when we called him Uncle Dan, we just kind of actually meant that. Okay.
Right.
Like, okay. I'm going to keep going. I'm sorry. And I'll let you go. But the other thing is, it doesn't fundamentally change Dan's understanding of his father, right? Like that is the other way you could use this is like, Dan had an understanding of who his dad was, and the existence of a half sibling fundamentally alters his understanding of who his dad was as a person. But I don't think it does, because I think Dan already kind of knew the type of person his dad was, and his reaction to this is basically like, yeah, Mom always wondered if he was like sleeping around when he was out drinking late at nights, and I guess this kind of confirms it. Yeah. It is just, it just feels tacked on in a way that I just don't feel is necessary. I really once again, it's Ray Palpatine bullshit that I think shrinks the world in a boring way, and doesn't ultimately serve the story at all. Yeah. And I'm done. I'm stopped. You go now.
Yeah. I think, the only silver lining or whatever I can figure is like, and this connects to what I was saying earlier about Dan being in a sort of state of stasis or arrested development or something, where this does give, the one thing this does give him is like an explicit connection back to humanity, where he can kind of stop treading water and he can kind of like become part of this family. It's like he was part of a family when he was a kid, and that family was basically detonated by this horrible tragedy that happened. Yes, he had his mom, but his mom died when he was still relatively young. And he's been without family, and now he has found family again. And in some ways, it may be good for him. The scenes we're going to see in a little bit, where he's having breakfast with his sister, and she's like, ragging on him. And it's like, this is maybe what he needs. Maybe he needs his sister to bust his balls and kind of give him a hard time and push him out of his rut. That's one of the functions of siblings. And I mean, close friends too, obviously, but like siblings have a privileged ability to say things to you, you know.
But I mean, they don't have that privilege when they're half siblings that you haven't known for 45 years.
And that's totally true, and that's why this is kind of a half-assed attempt at finding something that works here, because I actually just agree with you that you can't like fabricate a deep long-term relationship just by suddenly having like a label. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think the kind of the ultimately, this is a book about, I feel like I say this like 75,000 times any given week, but this is ultimately a story about found family. Like the true knot is not a family, but they are a family in a fucked up, warped kind of way. And the comparison point is kind of the way these Alcoholics Anonymous people have each other's back and support each other in a very familial kind of way. And so the choice to actually, like, to say that Dan cannot be grounded or rooted in the world unless he has someone that he is literally blood related to, I just don't like in the context of the story. Like, let me be clear here. Like, I think family is very important. I think blood family is very, very important. I love my family. I just like you, I have a connection to the people that I'm related to and I've spent my entire life with and share blood with. I have a connection with those people that I think is extremely important and powerful, and I would not trade that for anything. But like, that's not the only connection that can exist in the world. And to say that like Dan needs that to feel grounded or complete or to jumpstart his life, like, he's already become a presence in Abra's life. He's already Uncle Dan.
Yeah.
And like, does anyone believe that without that blood relation, he would not continue to support and guide and help Abra through her life? No, I don't believe that. Everything we know about Dan Torrance says otherwise. So the only the only way I think it functionally works in the story is if we're specifically talking about traits passed on via genetics, right?
Yeah.
That this is a book about genetic alcoholism, genetic anger, genetic ego, these things that these nature versus nurture things that are intrinsic to every single one of us, and if we do or do not have the ability to overcome them. That is the only path, in my estimation, in which this matters.
Yeah. And somehow we're going to have to work in Dan's confession of his terrible, rock bottom point.
Yeah.
Somehow. I don't know. I don't know. I think you're right. It's just not particularly necessary. I will admit that I like the scenes of him kind of getting to know his new sister. I like those. I like the scenes. I just don't like, if that was it, it doesn't pay for itself, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you were saying that, and my initial gut reaction was to be incredulous, and then the more I thought about it, I was like, no, I kind of do. Like, the kind of absurd, like, they're both kind of reeling at the absurdity of the situation, and she's like making him breakfast and being like, bro, like, I think that is fun.
Yeah.
In the way that they're kind of awkwardly dealing with this bombshell that has been dropped on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that's the one, like, the reason you do the last minute sibling reveal in stories is just because it's an inherently dramatic idea. It's like,
sure. Yeah.
Wow, this implies so much about our pasts that we didn't know, and it explains so much that we were confused about. And she's just lost a mother effectively. Concetta was effectively her mother.
Yeah.
And gained a brother. Very dramatic for her. It actually makes her a character that we kind of give a shit about, instead of her just being like Abra's mom, So
yeah,
again, not saying it like is worth the hit of eye rolling about this, but
yeah. Look, I just literally ranted about this thing for 15 minutes, and the funniest part is, like, as I was gearing up for my rant, a thought popped into my head was, is this really that big of a deal. And I kicked that thought out of my head, and I said, no, it is a big deal. I hate it. But ultimately, like I was coming into this book absolutely dreading getting to this point. And like ultimately where I am now is just like, man, this is a good movie, and he completely cuts this from the movie.
Yeah.
And that was one of the smartest decisions that I think Mike Flanagan made.
That would just be way too many things happening if he tried to fit this. Well,
So like the thing I want in my head is that Mike Flanagan agrees with me, right? The narrative I build in my head is that Mike Flanagan looked at this reveal and feels the exact same way I do. And so he said when he got his adaptation together, he's like, oh, this is the first thing I'm cutting. In reality, it's probably much closer to what you're saying there, whereas it was just a practicality standpoint. Like, again, Ketta is a character that doesn't exist in the movie because it's a movie and there's not time for all this stuff. And so it was maybe there was a version of the script in which Mike wanted to figure out a way to make this work, and he just couldn't fit it in. And so we had to excise that whole thing from the novel. Or maybe I'm right, and he just hated it as much as I did.
Well, I mean, he excises a lot of stuff, and he rearranges so much stuff that you kind of begin to see, like, we got to cut out all of the, you got to decide, are we going to have Concetta or not? If we're not going to have Concetta, then that whole thread almost has to go away. Otherwise, you have to think of some other harebrained way of including it.
Yeah.
We didn't say this yet, because I can feel you avoiding directly talking about it, but he clearly has inhaled Conchetta's cancer essence into himself to use as a weapon.
Okay.
Because he looks like shit. Everybody keeps commenting that he looks like shit and he looks miserable. And
he's just really tired, Matt.
And he has the black flies on his face and everything. It's because I don't know if he literally inhaled her steam in the way that the True Knot do, but I feel like he quite clearly has been implied to have this is what he wanted from her, actually, not just the information, but also her dying breath, so that he could use it as a weapon against the True Knot. That's what's happening.
Well, it's not very nice of you to bring up something I intentionally skipped over. So
I know.
I'm just saying you're being very rude. Well, and I don't appreciate that.
There are times when I feel clever, and then there are times when I feel like the book is really, really strongly gesturing toward this, and I don't feel particularly clever for having noticed this. So
yeah, so I am.
You're not going to confirm. I get it.
Not confirming nor denying. Yeah. The one thing I will say is, he basically says, he asks her for something, and it says he asks something of her and gives something in return. So
right, exactly.
So we kind of end the chapter with Dan filling Lucy basically on everything, and Dan, exhausted for just completely normal exhaustion reasons, has a dream. And I wanted to talk to you about this dream really quickly. It says, the library door banged open and a woman stepped into the sunlight. Great clouds of dark hair billowed around her head, yet her jauntily cocked top hat stayed on. It stayed on like magic. Oh, look, she said. It's Dan Torrance, the man who stole a woman's money while she was sleeping one off and then left her kid to be beaten to death. She smiled at Abra, revealing a single tooth. It looked as long and sharp as a bayonet. What will he do to you, little sweetie? What will he do to you? I like this because I think this is a way that they're injecting that back into the story as like a chess piece, kind of the truth of what Dan did. Abra does not know about this, as far as we know. I think we had one moment early on where she started to peek at it, and then Dan snapped her back. And as far as we know, hasn't pried further. Of course, maybe she has, and just Dan thinks that Abra doesn't know about it, but Abra does know. I don't know.
Yeah.
To complain about the Abra Torrance thing one more time. This is the last time, I promise.
Okay.
The one silver lining we had was, maybe this is a book about the flaws that are passed genetically on to our children. It doesn't seem to me that is one of Dan's fears at this point, right? Dan has a nightmare, and his nightmare is going back to the bad things that he did. But that is not connected at all to any kind of so like he is not. There is never a moment, and if you disagree with this, let me know. But there's never a moment in my estimation where he's like, "Oh no, she might be like my dad," and "Oh no, we have the same weakness and same like flaws," and that terrifies me. And what could that mean? Because he already knows she has a temper. He already knows she has a little bit of an ego. And so if what we were doing here was ultimately like, this is what the book is about. The book is about these genetically passed on flaws that we have and how we can or cannot overcome them. It just doesn't seem like that's in the forefront of what the book is doing right now. So it feels like if it's going to eventually circle around to that at the end, it's going to do so in a way that feels very last minute, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna. I think that's exactly what's gonna happen. Like, that's my prediction, is that we're gonna have a sort of climax where we attempt to bring all of these things together. And I honestly, I mean, this is pessimistic and probably like bad practice, since we're supposed to believe that everything is genius and everything is gonna work out, but I just don't. I just don't believe it's all gonna come together. I think it's gonna be like, the elements are kind of going to be arranged in front of us, and we're going to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, possible. Like, and also equally possible that I've read this book one time. It's been a while since I read it, and I do not remember. So I will happily come back eating Crow Daddy next week if it does do everything we wanted it to do and more.
That's right.
And I will say I actually love Ray Palpatine.
You and me both, man. We'll both be eating Crow Daddy next week.
Yep. All right. So they wake up after a few hours of sleep and find a message waiting for them from Abra in sugar on the counter. She just wanted her mom to understand she was okay. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So they try to kind of catch Lucy up on what the stakes are, and it seems like they kind of make her understand. We already talked about how much we loved these kind of sisterly brotherly interactions here. With that, they head up over to Abra, and we cut over to Rose, and we learn that the true knot, Matt, is becoming unknotted. People are leaving Rose in droves. Like, with her, she wakes up in the middle of the night and hears RVs drive off. No longer trusting her, no longer believing in her guidance. This is the family breaking up. This is supposed to be this unbreakable family, and they're slowly abandoning her.
And she just lets him go.
Yeah, because it's bullshit. That's in my estimation. Like, I think one thing that really cements this for me is that Sari comes to her, and Sari, to remind people, is Snakebite Andy's ex, or well, because she's dead, not ex, because Andy's dead. So, and she's mourning the loss of her love.
Mm-hmm.
And Sari is like genuinely mourning, and Rose is like on the surface comforting Sari, and like, but she's just using her. She's using her as a weapon. She's kind of winding her up, to make sure that she still has a few people left to help fight, the fight that's coming.
Yeah.
And so like, that's not family. That's not family at all.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've talked quite a bit about how the True Knot do care about each other, and they are genuinely heartbroken when one of their number dies, especially one that they were really close to. But it's interesting because it's like it's a kind of selfish love. It's like, you know, it's lacking something. You know, it's like how Abra calls their thoughts lizardy. It's like there's something missing from the affection they feel from each other is kind of transactional in a sense, where it's like, I like you because you're around and you make this existence bearable, but in
Rose cases, you do what I say. Like, you know, like you are subservient to me, and that's what I like about you. And the second I lose that, I do not care about you anymore.
Right.
It's complicated because I do still feel like even Rose genuinely does care for these people.
I just had a thought. It's like, you know, kids feel really, really strongly about like stuffed animals. They will love a stuffed animal. And if a stuffed animal is lost, that is a heartbreaking experience for a child. But that is a stuffed animal. And the child on some level even knows like, well, the stuffed animal doesn't feel anything because it's not alive.
Yeah.
They're gonna miss the toy because they liked the toy. The toy entertained them and made them happy, and now the toy is gone. And so they're only really concerned with like their end of things. Whereas like when a loved one dies or even a pet, you're not just mourning like its absence from your life. You're also mourning the end of its life on its own terms.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sad for it or them, not just for myself, right?
Yeah. No, I think you're onto something there. I really like that. Also, like the idea, like that, not Rose specifically, but we did see like other members of the True Knot as people are getting sick and dying, getting the measles and dying. There's definitely this feel of it's not grief and fear for the loss of loved one. It's like, oh, this could affect me next. Like there's like this is this kind of gathered family over time where they've slowly recruited more and more people. And I just think like on the edges of it, we're seeing some people that aren't, I think we talked about this last week, that are not quite as committed to the idea of the True Knot as the rest of them. And so I think you're right that it's this, I think that's just a perfect way of describing it, is like mourning their absence, but not the person.
Yeah.
I think it's just absolutely right there.
They're basically psychopaths.
Unless you're my son, and when his stuffed monkey goes missing, and I look for it for 3 hours, and then I tell him I can't find it, and he goes, okay, I guess it just floated away. And I was like distraught because it's like his first stuffed animal he ever had. We don't even know where it came from. I haven't been able to find it to buy anywhere. It's this little stuffed monkey, and he loves it to death, but he didn't care. And I was destroyed. And then we found it. But
oh, good.
Yeah.
I was really invested in this story because I wasn't going to say this, but I was thinking, I bet he does care a lot. He just cares so much that he couldn't express it in anything as paltry as a childish tantrum. He just had to go, sit somewhere.
I just don't think he fully understood what I can't find monkey
implies.
Monkey's gone actually meant.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, like he compared it to like the reason he said maybe it floated away towards the sun is like one time he had a balloon in the back of my car and let go of the balloon and it went, and like that in his mind is like, it's gone. And that was what gone was to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a tangent, but yeah, my son's a psychopath. He didn't get sad about his monkey. I did. It's like I was like distraught. Like I drove all over town because on this particular day we let him take the monkey into the car.
Yeah.
And so I went to every single parking lot we went in at 10:30 at night looking to see if maybe he dropped it when we opened the door. It was one of the most harrowing experiences of my life.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find the damn monkey.
Well, glad you found the monkey.
Yeah, it was in a freaking drawer in my dining room.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, why would he? He's never put it there since or before, but that's where it was.
That's hilarious.
And there's part of me that thinks that little piece of shit knew that it was in that drawer the whole time.
Yeah, he was just, oh, can't find it, huh, Dad? That's a shame.
I guess it just floated away.
Yes, it just floated away.
Anyway, that's my harrowing monkey story. But
great.
Yeah, stuffed animals are real and they're important. And I was mourning the loss of monkey. Sorry
that I feel like this tangent has inverted my original point, but anyway, the True Knot, bad.
Yes. All right, so the chapter ends with Dan getting on Ketta's computer and Googling the Bluebell Campground and the Overlook Lodge and the small platform right where the Overlook used to sit, the roof o' the world. I like this writing here. the state had taken that particular piece of land, and Dan wasn't surprised. Who would have wanted to build there? The ground was rotten, and he doubted if you had to be telepathic to sense it. But the True had gotten as close as they could, and Dan had an idea that their wandering guests, the normal ones, rarely came back for a second visit or recommended the Bluebell to their friends. An evil place would call evil creatures, John had said. If so, the converse would also be true. It would tend to repel good ones. I love this as setup for where our final confrontation will be taking place, what this place is, and what it represents. That it was not just the hotel, it was the ground on which it sat.
Yep, it's great.
Yeah. Chapter 17, Bitch Girl. So Dan reaches out to Abra and instructs her to call Rose on the phone using some information he just learned from the computer. He does so, getting Rose on the phone in like the most fascinatingly mundane way possible, Matt. I just love this. Like, hey, I'm going to call back in 5 minutes. Have her sitting here. And then Rose comes down with like coffee, and then she spills a little bit of her coffee. Like Rose losing her cool is just her standing up and knocking over her coffee. It's just like, this is like a centuries old vampire. And it's just wonderfully mundane in the way this all works out.
Yeah, no, it's a great scene. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Abra repeats her threat against Rose on the phone. She's coming to get her, and she uses a word over and over again in the speech. The word is coward. It seems like Dan Torrance watched Back to the Future recently, Matt.
Yeah, don't call her Yella.
Joking aside, I do kind of love that Dan just has Rose's number here, right? Like he's seen people like her before. He understands how they operate, and he understands that this particular word would goad her. It would successfully drive her crazy, and it does. Rose manages to keep her cool for a little bit, but as we said, she spills her coffee, and she kind of loses her cool a little bit here.
Well, she starts to, and then she just gets worse and worse. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that Dan, he knows addicts, he knows people with egos, and he knows how to push their buttons.
Absolutely. So Abra challenges Rose to a one-on-one duel on the roof of the world. Rose accepts, of course. And I love this from Abra. The bitch girl was not to be turned. There was another saying, I can't remember it exactly, but it was something like, hoisted on your own petard. Miss Franklin said a petard was a bomb on a stick. I think that's sort of what's happening to your tribe of cowards. You sucked the wrong kind of steam and got stuck on a petard, and now the bomb is going off. Ugh, just wonderful. Just wonderful stuff.
It's great. The funny late term introduction of Shakespeare into the novel is interesting. It's like it just started this week, and now it's like it's constant.
Well, again, it's very clever. I don't like. It's not clear how much Dan told her to do, like how much he instructed her. Like he definitely instructed her to use the word coward over and over again. But like did he instruct her to do this? Because this is really, really clever. Because Crow Daddy is like where she's very, very vulnerable right now. She did love him, and he is dead, and she's furious about it. Crow Daddy loved to quote Shakespeare, so she goes at Rose through Crow's propensity to quote Shakespeare a lot, and so here brings up Hamlet. It is Hamlet, right? That's what hoisted by your own petard comes from. I think it is. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it's Hamlet. Okay. But it's very, very clever. She's very smart. This little girl, very smart.
Yes, I love this.
But she is also a little girl, Matt, because we see that she hangs up the phone after like being this total badass, and then immediately starts crying, runs to the bathroom, and throws up because she is a 13-year-old girl that just threatened a centuries-old vampire witch from hell.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. I agree. Like, I think that's one of this book does a good job of writing this line between the dire, horrifying, terrifying circumstances and also kind of still being fun.
Yeah.
I think very often there are books we read that don't remain fun, and they're still like enjoyable to read, but that's just one quality this book has, is it's manages to just be like exciting and fun and adventurous.
Yeah. I agree with that. While also still dealing with some pretty heavy things at the same time.
Yeah.
This book reminds me of Insomnia so much in a way that I don't think I've ever really thought about before. And it's not just because you made Insomnia comparisons early on in our coverage. It's just like the way it's kind of specifically plotty in a way that doesn't always work for me, but that the characters are so well drawn and defined that I like them so much.
Yeah.
It just feels part and parcel with Insomnia to me.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. I know what you mean. Insomnia had the feeling of a book where every day he sat down at his keyboard not knowing what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And this book has less of that feeling because I think there are certain things that it feels like he had in mind from the beginning, but also there's a lot of twists and turns.
Sure.
Which and kind of different plot movements, you could say.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I agree. Maybe he was. These books aren't particularly written close to each other, though, are they?
No, Insomnia was early 90s. This is 2011. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting that I totally agree with you, and yet it kind of doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So Rose calms herself down and then cleans up her spilt coffee because Matt, she always cleans up her own messes. Well, not so far, but finally, maybe.
Right. In her own mind, she does. That's the important thing.
I wonder if she's going to throw any more of her minions at them first.
Probably.
Probably. But first, for this final conflict to happen, our characters need to head west, and the chapter ends with Dan and Abra discussing how that's going to work, how Abra's family is possibly going to allow her to go to Colorado to confront this monster. By the way, as a parent, the answer is absolutely not. Like, never. I'm never letting you do that, Abra.
Yeah.
So we're going to see how this works.
Yeah, just send Dan. He'll handle it.
Yeah. But the chapter ends with Dan washing his face in the bathroom, looks up into the mirror and sees flies, which you already kind of ruined. But he could just, because he's gonna be in imminent danger from Rose.
Yeah, it could
Matt,
be that.
Yeah,
could be what it is.
Could be.
Uh-huh. Sure.
So
yeah, I believe you.
You think you're so smart? You got it all figured out?
Yeah.
Fuck. Okay. Well, anyway, that is going to do it for the reading this week. I think we did an okay job here, Matt. Obviously, you had a couple things that you were very passionately not a fan of. I had one particular thing I was very passionately not a fan of. But there was still plenty to like in these chapters. There's still plenty to like in this book. And I look forward to refreshing my memory on how it all wraps up. And that is what's going to happen next week. Chapters 18 through the end of the book. That's what we're covering on next week's episode.
All right.
Before we go, though, we have a discussion question. Matt, What was our discussion question from a couple weeks ago?
It was, what is your favorite filmed visual depiction of trippy mind powers? From Fault Medium, we have, as far as visual depictions of trippy powers, you need look no further than the TV series Legion. The show is stunning in its interpretation of mind control, telepathy, telekinesis, layered over mental illness. I remember watching the first episode and just being blown away by the visual design of it, and it only got more interesting and more trippy as the show went on.
Yeah, I really like that show. I believe that was done by Noah Hawley, who is also show running Alien Earth, the new Alien show that just premiered today as we sit down and record this, which I have not gotten a chance to watch that again.
Interesting.
But part of the reason why I'm so excited about Alien Earth is because Noah Hawley has a very specific lens he likes to approach these properties with. Like he did the Fargo TV series, which I thought was a terrible idea the first time I heard about it, and then watched the show and absolutely adored it. And then was a big fan of Legion as well. And so I'm really, really excited to see his take on Alien. So check out Legion, everyone. And then also I can't recommend Alien Earth because I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to watch it.
Me too.
Felladau says, does the Matrix count? All the kung fu pyrotechnics that takes place in the Matrix are technically mental powers. Sure. I like it.
Yeah.
How about that one fight with 700 Smiths versus Neo that goes on for An interminable length of time.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember that.
I think you do.
I don't remember that being in The Matrix, which is the only Matrix movie. I mean, like there's even the cool scene with the mirror and stuff like that. Like that's really fun.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Scarlet Claret says Scanners, spoilers for 44-year-old movie. Well, Scott, I haven't seen this movie, but
Scanners is 44 years old. Fuck.
I'll go ahead and ruin the movie for myself. In utero scanner fetus reading, our main character in the doctor's waiting room sticks with me as notable trippy psi power. Makes me wonder what Abra's parents experienced while Abra was gestating, given the 9/11 dreams. What did Wendy and especially Jack experience during Wendy's pregnancy in that light? What did they all brush off as stress and hormones? My mom is deathly allergic to strawberries, and while pregnant with me, dreamed that she gave birth to a beautiful, fecund, happy basket of strawberries, and that lady doesn't have an ounce of shine. That's wonderful. That's
great.
That's I love that.
We did an episode on Scanners. You sure you've never seen Scanners?
I've never seen Scanners. We did not do an episode on Scanners.
There was an episode of Scanners. You just weren't on it.
I mean, I've never seen Scanners. I don't know.
I guess this might have been during one of your paternity leaves. I don't remember.
Yeah, one of the on a long enough timeline, you have a lot of paternity leaves, you know.
Yeah, I'm looking through our podcast episodes. I think it was a Kryptonian collection from way, way, way back in the day.
Okay.
And I guess you weren't on it.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe no, we didn't do. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. We did on Videodrome, not Scanners.
Yeah, that's similar, I guess. I don't know.
It's not, but I've definitely seen Scanners. Anyway, sorry. I took us in a terrible direction.
I'm not you though, so anyway. Go on.
But everything I see, you see. That's how this works.
I know. I'm sorry.
Pear Jane says, I'm stealing Baby Can You Dig Your Sam's likely answer and going to go with the dreams in Twin Peaks. On the one hand, we have the giant and the little person. On the other, we have the straightforward retellings from Cooper's bizarre prophetic rock throwing to Major's haunting monologue to Bobby. In the world of Twin Peaks, every dream is vitally important. When are we gonna do a thing on that show?
2033.
Sweet. I got it on the calendar.
All right. BC Johnson says, all right, do I have to be the asshole who says Alice's future sight powers from Twilight? In the final Twilight movie, Breaking Dawn Part 2, the film climaxes with a cataclysmic battle between the Cullen-affiliated vampires/werewolves and the Volturi, basically evil vampire government. Heroes and villains alike die in shocking ways, and book readers are taken aback as a bunch of extremely violent stuff that definitely did not happen in the book occurs. Except, spoiler alert, I guess, the battle didn't actually happen. All the main characters who were dismembered or immolated are actually fine, because the whole thing was just Alice's insight into the future, and the villain reading her mind and realizing he's going to die too if they fight. Basically, the story ends with two people staring at each other and the villain backing out, but it's somehow pretty exciting, and a neat way to showcase what might happen if a mind reader and a precog did battle. Yeah.
I feel like I've told this story before, but this is the only Twilight movie I've seen. Is this one, the final one?
Uh-huh.
And I was like miserable and not enjoying myself at all, and obviously could not follow what was going on because it's the last movie and like a 4-movie thing. And then you get to this scene, and I'm just like, holy shit. This movie rules. You've been doing this shit in the Twilights the whole time? No, it doesn't actually happen.
No.
It's a little sad.
No, you gotta watch it. You can watch it on YouTube. It's pretty great. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, because like the method of vampire killing in the Twilight series is just ripping heads off. Like that's how they just do it. So it's just like 5 minutes of dudes and werewolves ripping each other's heads off.
Yeah. And like reacting in shock and horror because it's like, that's Joe, the main character, you know.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah.
I didn't, but sure. Yeah.
All right, gonna quickly go through the rest of the answers. OK Row 2424 said Paul's visions in the Dune films, weird, strange imagery that doesn't make sense until later. It's funny, only with the passage of time have I appreciated how clever some of those are and their like dual meanings. Anyway, Baby Can You Dig Your Sam says Twin Peaks and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas circus scene. Yep, that's a good one. Warder Wannabe says it's a simple joke response suggesting Vampwich and Sandwich as names. That's not okay.
So one fun thing that happens is we record these episodes like 2 weeks in advance, essentially. And so by the time the episodes come out, it's been a while since I've listened to myself talk about the stuff. And so often I just don't remember what we talked about on that episode. Right. And I see comments like this hit and I just like,
yeah,
what are you talking about? I have no idea. And then eventually I realized, oh, that was the episode where we talked about how they're vampire witches.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's the best when that happens on like a 7-year-old episode. And I'm just like, I would literally have to rewatch the episode to know what you're talking about. Anyway, Duran Longbeard says Yu Yu Hakusho anime's psychic abilities, including conversation competition with disappearing letters.
I want to give everyone a round of applause for a question that was so obviously set up by Matt in order to let people pick a lot of anime bullshit, and only one person did. So you all should be very proud of yourself, I think.
Right. I mean, I didn't even mention the Genjutsu battle between Sasuke and Itachi.
I think we got to move on.
Okay.
We got to wrap the episode up. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. All right, folks, for our next discussion question, it is going to take place on our overview episode. Sorry, as we take one final look back at Dr. Sleep. And that means it's mailbag time. So we are not asking you guys a question. We want you guys to ask us questions. Obviously, they can be about Dr. Sleep. By the time we're reading those questions, we will have finished the book and have finished talking about it. So it can be about Dr. Sleep. It can be about anything else. Mike Flanagan, anything you want. Anything you want, you can ask questions. So make sure you send those in to us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have finished the thing I was simultaneously looking forward to and dreading, which is the Dan's and Uncle reveal of Dr. Sleep. Next week we will finish off the book and see if King manages to stick this landing or not. I look forward to it. So yeah, once again, chapter 18, all the way through the end of the book next week.
Remember, you can reach us via email at flanaganswakepod@gmail.com, over on Twitter at flanagan'swake19. And the best place to answer those discussion questions is on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/doofmedia. Don't forget that you can watch every episode over on YouTube. So don't forget to watch us, give us a like and a comment letting us know what you think of the show.
Yeah, and if you want to buy some cool Doof Media and Flanagan's Wake merchandise, you can do that at doofmedia.myshopify.com. We've got wonderful Ghost Bear mugs. I'm showing one right here. That's from, in case you're joining us late, that is from The Haunting of Hill House. Somehow we got lots of other great merch there if you want to support us. T-shirts, mugs, all the cool stuff. Check it out. Get some stuff that you will enjoy and help support our podcast.
That's right. If you like any of our shows and you want to support us, then please consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/doofmedia. Working on some bonus content for you coming out in the next.
Well said. Perfect.
Thank you.
But of course, if you cannot support us on Patreon, that's okay. We understand. We do ask that you support us through ways that don't cost any money, and that involves sharing the show, that involves interacting with the show in comments on YouTube and other places, and of course, leaving us rating and reviews. This week's Spotlight review comes from your stepdad, Ron, who gives us 5 stars and says, consistently top quality. The hosts are smart and entertaining. They know how to communicate effectively with each other and the audience. I look forward to the podcast every week because I know I'm going to appreciate a piece of art more than I did before. This is media I'm consciously choosing to engage with. I make the time to listen. Wow, Ron, you do love me.
That's That's like the best compliment ever, because it's like this isn't just, part of the trying to fill the endless void through distracting myself from the fear of annihilation and ultimate cessation. You're just choosing to actually engage with it. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It is also that. And that is also part of the reason we are making the show, to fill that void for us.
Which is fine.
Yeah. We're doing great.
We're doing great. I'm great.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks everyone else who has taken the time to send those rating and reviews in. We really do appreciate that. They really do help. We love them. So please keep them coming.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is it. Next week, Dr. Sleep comes to an end. Until then, rest in peace. Please? Rest in peace. I don't even know where the L came from there. Maybe from Flanagan? Rest in peace, Mr. The show's over. Go away.